Welcome to the Greyhawk DJC podcast. In today's podcast, we talk with Daniel Novakov, head football coach at Parish Episcopal High School in Dallas, Texas. We hope you enjoy the podcast. Hey, Coach, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Absolutely, I appreciate you.
I know we don't know each other.
No, that's what'll make it interesting, right?
And you responded to my email, so we really appreciate this. So.
What's funny, I barely read, I was looking at it and I was like, what is this email? So I read it and then I was like, yeah, I'll do it,
Nothing weird about it, right?
No, this is totally random to everybody listening. We do not know each other.
Yep.
Complete email out of the blue.
Right, and we've never had a football coach on the show, so this is really uncharted territory for us, but I think it's going to be awesome and interesting. So.
I'm honored to be the first one to be on the show.
Right. So you are the head football coach at Parish Episcopal High School in Dallas.
Correct.
Right. How long have you been the coach here?
This will be my 7th year.
Okay. Did they hire you as something else, or
yeah,
were you hired as the head coach?
This is my 13th year total.
Okay.
I came on as the offensive coordinator and then ascended into being the head coach. I've just finished my 6th season last year.
Okay. So let's rewind the time machine here and get to know you better. So tell us where you're from, where you grew up, your family.
From
schooling.
Dallas, born and raised in Dallas. Went to St. Mark's School of Texas, right down the road, a competitor, so right down the road. And then went to Notre Dame, played football at Notre Dame.
What position?
I was a quarterback, believe it or not. Many pounds ago. But
so a full scholarship recruit?
No, I was a walk-on. So interesting story. My dad was a All-American center there a long time ago. So I grew up always wanting to go to Notre Dame, always being around Notre Dame football. Unfortunately, they didn't see my skills in the same light as I saw my skills, so kind of came down to the last minute. I didn't know whether I was going to go there or not, and at the last minute they had a space open up. They had somebody decommit, and then they asked me, did I want to come and play, and so obviously I took that opportunity. Turned out to be a great decision. I ended up getting to play in letter and do a lot of things that ended up being once-in-a-lifetime things that I would have probably regretted looking back on if I didn't take the opportunity.
Right. So, all right, this is really interesting. So let's rewind a little bit. So in high school, starter, obviously.
Yeah.
How did you play in high school? Were you?
I mean, I was good. I wouldn't say, I don't know. It's hard to sit here and say how good you were because I look back on it now and I watch some of the kids that play out here for us now, and I'm like, man, I sucked. So I don't know. At the time, I thought I was pretty good. But, I mean, I wasn't like All-American or anything, but I was I could hold my own. So.
Newspaper clippings?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
were you recruited?
Yeah, I was recruited to other schools like Brown, SMU, other places. Those were really the other two I was looking at. Brown, which is an Ivy League school up in the Northeast, and then SMU were probably the two.
Was SMU going to give you a scholarship?
That came the closest. Yeah, I went on an official visit. It never really got to that point, so I went on an official visit, and then the Notre Dame thing came up, and so I don't really, never really got a quote-unquote offer, but they brought me on an official visit and really wanted me to come there, and so I think it would have gone that way had it progressed, but ended up being the Notre Dame thing worked out, and so all was fine.
So this is not a Rudy situation. You were actually asked to come to the school.
Yeah, I mean, and Rudy, it was kind of like that, but not as, me trying so hard to get on the team like he was, but anytime you walk on somewhere, it's tough. I mean, you got to...
Yeah, what's that like? Tell us.
You got to have some mental toughness. I mean, they're not they don't care what happens to you. They don't care whether you stay on the roster or not. They're not looking out for you like they are the scholarship players. So, in order to letter and to actually get to play in a game, I know at one point I was the only walk-on quarterback that ever, or no, one of two, sorry, there's another one. One of two walk-on quarterbacks that ever got to play quarterback in a game. I don't know if that record still stands. I hadn't paid that much attention to it, but I know for a long time there was only two of us. So, in order to do that, you got to have a bunch of mental toughness, perseverance, all those kind of traits that I actually have helped me in every other job I've had. Like that was one of the best experiences because I learned pretty quickly. I was like any other kid, spoiled by my parents when I was growing up. Went to a ritzy private school, so you get there as a walk-on, and you realize pretty quick the way the world is, and you got to figure out how to make it and how to get somebody to take notice of you and somehow, some way get into a game and actually get to play quarterback. There was times I thought I'd be cut. There's times I thought I'll never play or I was going to quit or whatever it is. You have all those thoughts and all those feelings go through your mind, but, you just stick it out and keep fighting every day and good things happen.
So when you're a freshman, when you arrive on campus at Notre Dame, you go to a different practice with the walk-ons?
No. So I was invited to be on the roster. I wasn't. They have kind of different levels. I was definitely invited to be on the roster.
Okay.
They wanted me to be there, but I wasn't like a 5-star recruit. I wasn't treated like gold or anything like that. I was just, kind of there and part of the roster. And, I'll tell you kind of a quick funny story. Urban Meyer, you know who Urban Meyer is?
Yep.
He was the quarterback coach at the time, a long time ago. So, I get out there. I'm excited. You're warming up first day, and you throw a pass. And he looks over at me and he goes, "What was that?" And I was throwing. He's like, "If you were good, I would have said that sucked, but you're not good." So I don't know what he used it explicit. And I don't know if we can use expletives on this podcast, but he used a bad word and said, "I don't know what the F to call that." And so I was like, "Whoa, what am I doing here?"
Was that a compliment?
No, that was not a compliment.
Okay.
That was him saying, "You're not good enough for even me to tell you how terrible you are."
My
So,
God.
that was kind of my introduction to it. And then.
And just for perspective, what year is this?
This is 1999,
Okay.
fall of 99,
All right.
going into 2000. So, yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, the fall of 1999. So I was there 99 to 03.
Okay, so
Yep.
you make the team, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
And
I was there all 4 years, lettered, all
What was
that
your
stuff.
first game?
The only game I ever played in was my actually second to last game. It was at home against Rutgers, and I got to play in that game for enough to letter. I can't remember the exact amount of time, but quite a while, several drives, and kind of a neat. That's why I said kind of like Rudy, because kind of a neat culmination to the end of a career. You finally, after all those years of fighting it out and persevering, you get a chance to go out there and actually play quarterback in a game is unbelievable in Notre Dame Stadium.
Right.
It's an unbelievable experience.
Did you know you were going to be in the game before the game started?
No, not at all.
How far were you on the depth chart?
Third.
Up until,
I spent most of the time third or fourth on the depth chart.
Okay.
There was a couple of weeks where somebody would get hurt and I'd be bump up or bump down or whatever, but that was pretty much my where I stayed.
What was the situation when they let you in the game?
We were winning by quite a bit, probably by 20-something points, 30 points.
But there's plenty of time left, though.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I mean,
right.
there was probably 17 minutes, something like. I mean, there was plenty of time. There was 2 or 3 drives,
Okay.
So it wasn't just like go in, take a knee. I can't remember exactly how
And it
much.
wasn't just running plays for you. You got to
Yeah,
throw
no,
it
I
back.
didn't get to throw. Well, I got a pass play called, but unfortunately, I didn't get to throw it. I had a carry instead for -1 yard. So I'm in the stat book, but no, I didn't get to throw a pass.
Awesome. All right, so you got 4 years at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of good coaching, right?
Oh,
You-
yeah.
You learned your kind
Yeah.
of what football is. Is that kind of the basis of how you coach now, or your playbook and all that stuff? Or?
No, you take bits and pieces from everywhere you go, every stop you have. I didn't know I wanted to be a coach back then. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And honestly, I'm a coach because I still probably don't know what I want to do. So I just kind of gravitated towards the only thing I've ever known, which is football, and then figured out a way to make a living at it. But no, I didn't. I kind of take bits and pieces from different stops, different places, and then you try to mold that together and build your coaching style or how you're going to, run a team or whatever. But there was a lot of great coaches on that staff. But the other thing you learn is a lot of what you're not going to do as well. There's days where you didn't know if people knew your name, how, you didn't feel like you were treated that great. So I try to also remember those things and use them, in my coaching career now of things I also don't want to do.
Right. So when you're done with Notre Dame, what are you doing next?
Come back here.
Okay.
I get a job coaching at Bishop Lynch High School as an assistant coach.
All right.
So that was kind of my first stop. I was there for several years. Then I came here for 1 year. Then I went to college and I coached at Miami University up in Oxford, Ohio.
How'd you get that job?
Man, it was a random connection with a Notre Dame guy named Mike Haywood, who I'm still really close to this day, but he was the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame. And then he gets the head coaching job at Miami of Ohio. So just to clear it up, there's Miami University, which is ours in Ohio.
Right.
Then there's the U, which is University of Miami in Miami, Florida. Miami of Ohio is known as the cradle of coaches. So you've had Don Shula, the Harbaughs, a bunch of people go through there. It's a really, unique breeding ground for successful football coaches. So Coach Haywood, who was the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame at the time, got the head job at Miami of Ohio. I didn't really know him. I didn't play for him because he was after me, but we had some mutual connections. So somebody asked me, hey, would you be interested in going to work for Coach Haywood? I said, sure. One thing led to another. I get a job there. I go up there for 2 years with him. We have an unbelievable run. We went 1-10 or 1-11, however many they were playing at the time. But we won one game. I know that. The next year, we had the largest turnaround in the history of college football, going 10-4 and winning a bowl game. Which
who's the quarterback? Anybody famous on
Zach
the team?
Dysert, who was kind of famous, but he played for the Cowboys for a little bit, and then he's kind of bounced around the NFL. I mean, he's not super famous, but Ben Roethlisberger is probably the most recently famous person to come out of there. We didn't coach him, but they've got some good players that come out of there. So anyway, Coach Haywood gets the job at Pitt, right? You win, you get a new job. So he gets a job at Pitt. Everyone's going to go to Pitt. We're kind of on our way, and then he gets a domestic violence charge New Year's Eve. Right after, we all just won big, and so a couple days in limbo, and then he gets fired. So everybody's like, oh, great, now what do we do now?
And that's a real thing. If the head coach messes up, then it affects everybody else.
Everybody else loses their job. Right. So we're all out of a job. So I come back here. This is the year the Super Bowl's in Dallas. Mm-hmm. So I just bump into Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones' son. At a Super Bowl party. I was random. I don't know. I still don't know to this day. We become really good friends.
You need to tell me that way to get in and bump elbows with these people.
I don't. I mean, it was a random party. I had no idea he's going to be there. We get to talking, and he asked me to come out to Valley Ranch that next week. I was actually getting married the week after. So I told him I'm getting married, but I'll come the next week. So I came out the next week, sitting down. We're talking in his office. And at the time, he had a son who was going into 6th grade. So he wanted me to coach his son, and then also I got on the Cowboys as a quality control assistant. So I was working for them for a while, and then came here as the offensive coordinator, and then became the head coach. So that's kind of the roundabout career story.
What does a quality control assistant do at the Cowboys?
Grunt work. Okay. So basically, like if you're in the financial world, it'd be like an analyst or kind of the low man. A lot of film study, a lot of preparing scouting reports and playbooks and that kind of stuff. So pretty much you're kind of the assistant to the real coaches, and you're kind of learning as you go.
So you're watching them, see how they prepare.
Yeah, and they're giving you assignments of like, hey, go watch the Chicago Bears and, watch all the third downs and, what concepts they run on third down or what coverages they run, stuff like that. So you kind of do all that kind of stuff and all the film breakdowns from week to week.
Okay. So straight out of college, you went straight into coaching.
I did, but not because I just really didn't know what else to do.
How did you get the first job at Bishop Lynch then?
Boy, that's a good question. How did I get that job? I think if I remember right, their coach left. So I just applied for the head coaching job. I was 2 years old. And so they wrote me back and they were like, hey, we're not going to hire you as head coach, but would you be interested in being an assistant? And I said, sure. So I think that's really how I didn't know anyone, but, I was from here and the circles are kind of small. So there were some mutual connections. I didn't really know anyone really well, but I definitely had some connections.
So is that normal for the school to hire the assistant coach without the head coach doing that? Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of different. That was a different deal.
Did you guys get along then?
Yeah, we got along fine for a while. I mean, so really what happened, the first coach quit, the one I was supposed to go work for quit. He got the job, had it for a weekend, and then he got another job, so he quit and went and did something else. So then they hired another guy and ended up actually working for him, and we're still friendly to this day. I mean, so yeah, we got along fine.
Okay. So you've been coaching for a while. Mm-hmm. What's the biggest change you see in high school football, both on the field and then like school and off the field stuff?
The biggest change you see in football, period, is kids and parents and everybody are in it for themselves. It used to be when I was in high school, a kid never moved high schools.
Right.
Never, it was rare if somebody left one high school and went to the other. People didn't transfer colleges. Like on my Notre Dame team, I can probably count on one hand the kids that left, and went to another college. Like that was unheard of, and it only happened if you were really unhappy or you did something really bad. And now today, like kids are just bouncing all over the place. The transfer portal.
Yep.
All that stuff.
That happens in high school too?
Oh, yeah. High school kids are moving around. So that's the biggest change is, and some of that's good, right? I mean, some of that works out. Like you could be at a place where, they've got 4 really good quarterbacks and you're also a really good quarterback and you just need an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so you may need to move and that's good. That'll work out and that's fine. And then other times, there's people that move and it's like, what are you doing? You just were all district, you were this, that, and the other, and it wasn't good enough for you. and they're just constantly looking for the better deal. And that's the part I think any coach would tell you gets frustrating. We all understand, you're going to lose people. They're going to come, they're going to go. And if somebody really is, jammed up with a bunch of guys good ahead of them or whatever, you want the best for the kid. And so if he needs to go on, like, that's obvious. But the ones that get frustrating are the ones that, you just can't satisfy. They're always better dealing you or looking for something else. And, that happens a lot too nowadays.
Right. So if you do have a bunch of good quarterbacks, right, your third string guy is really good. How do you keep them motivated? Because they have all the talent as much as maybe the second or first string guy.
Yeah.
I never understood how a coach works that psychologically. Like, what do you tell the kid?
That's the hardest part about this job. Like, the part I hate the most about this job is you have to pick players, right? I got to figure out who's going to play, and a lot of times those are really close calls, and, you have personal relationships with the kid, and you don't want to hurt anyone. You know how devastating it is for a kid not to get to play. So, that is the worst part of this job. But at the same time, I think my experience helps in those situations because I can relate to, being the star. I was, the starter in high school, played all the snaps, and then I can also relate to having to work my way up the ladder, and constantly being passed over and being the third string quarterback. So I think having those experiences kind of helps me mentally help the kids, especially in that situation. Then also, it depends on the grade level. Like, if a kid's a freshman and he's really talented, but he may be the third string kid, his time will come. They just got to be patient, and but you also got to find ways to keep people engaged. There's a JV team, so those kids get to play on Thursday night, and then, you got to find ways to let them know you appreciate them and keep them involved where they don't feel like they're not a part of it.
Right. So on the field, strategically or tactically, what's the biggest change you've seen over the years?
Oh, man. The passing game has changed.
Right.
It used to be the shotgun passing game, the kind of Mike Leach air raid stuff changed the whole game of football. Everybody is running some of that to some extent. When I was in high school, we weren't ever in shotgun. We were under center, I formation, power football. You threw maybe 20 times a game. That was a lot. If you 10 to 12 times a game was probably average, and then on a low end, you'd throw 5 times a game. Nowadays, you see people throwing 50, 60 times a game for 500, 600 yards. So that's changed the whole dynamic. The passing game has changed the whole dynamic of football. And then recently, you've seen the RPO come into the game, which is now the run-pass option, which has really strained defenses because it used to be you had to guess, okay, do I want to run the ball? Do I want to pass the ball? Now you can do the best of both worlds. Call both and just let the quarterback figure out whether he should throw it or whether he should hand it off, and that makes it really hard on defenses.
And the quarterback is deciding on the fly.
On the fly, yep.
Right, so what's the play call? You tell him it's an RPO, and he decides based upon the defense what he's going to do. Yeah,
like ours would be like trips right, 43 zone, Tiger. So you're telling him 43 zone is the run play, Tiger is the pass concept, and he's deciding as he takes the snap and looking at the defense whether he's going to pull it and throw it or just hand it off to the running back. And so it makes it really hard on the defensive guys because they, a lot of times can't be right.
Right. How do quarterbacks, the kids nowadays, know how to do that? Because we, like you said, back in 30,
it's
40,
no different than
they
option.
never did it.
It's option football. You're just, your triple option's always been around.
Right.
That stuff's been around. They just changed who the option guy is. Used to be, in triple option football, you're going to read the end on the line of scrimmage, right? You're going to ride the fullback, come down the line, pitch. If the end takes you, if the end comes upfield, you keep it. Now you're just telling them, hey, you're going to read that linebacker over there. If he steps up and plays his run gap, pull it and throw it. If he sits there, hand the ball off. It's really not – it's actually made it a lot easier than having to read out a whole pass concept because you're really just telling them, pick that one guy right there and watch him. Mm-hmm. And if he comes up to tackle the running back, pull it and throw it right behind him. If he stays there, hand it off to the running back.
I see. So do you think pitching, as you read the end, is more difficult than pulling back and throwing an accurate pass?
Yes, I do.
Seriously?
Yeah, I think running the triple option is really hard to do. That was why it was so difficult to defend. The reason, is my opinion, the reason triple option, I think everyone would still run it if it was beneficial to the kids. The reason the triple option went away is you couldn't get a quarterback. They don't get to throw. They're bored, right? You couldn't get any receivers because they're not catching any passes. Mm-hmm. So now there's, running back was the only guy really doing a whole lot, and so that was started to be a problem. Kids were leaving programs and weren't having a whole lot of fun just blocking. And then all of a sudden, everybody's throwing the ball, everybody's touching it, catching touchdowns.
Oh, so it didn't go out of style. It's just people didn't want to do it anymore.
I think my theory is people don't run it because you're going to lose all your players. They're all going to transfer out. That's why Navy and Army and them run it. They're not worried about people transferring out. And they got rid of the cut block. So once they got rid of the cut block, that made it harder to run the triple option.
Can you explain what a cut block is?
Cut block is where a lineman, instead of blocking an offensive or a defensive player up high, they'll dive at their legs and flip them. It makes it really hard on the defensive player.
Right.
They call the cut block the great equalizer in football. Slows the defense down, but now they've kind of taken it out of the game, except in certain situations.
Yeah, and players take offense to that nowadays, right?
Yeah,
you see fights because of that.
Yeah, you see a ton of fights because of that.
Right.
You want to get somebody really upset, especially cut like a 4 or 5 star defensive end, and they're going to get really upset.
Right. So if you run into a team that runs the old like wing T or something,
it's tough.
It's tough, right? Because
Yeah.
no one knows.
You don't
what
see it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is you can't prepare for it in practice because you got 1 week to try to teach your scout team or look team how to run the wing T or how to run the triple option. It ain't gonna happen. So you're not gonna be able to run it like they run it.
Do you ever face anybody like that?
Try not to. Every once in a while you try not to schedule them, but yeah, every once in a while you're forced to.
So if a school calls you and say, "Hey, we want to play you on this day," and they run the wing T or triple option, you're like, "No."
No, unless you can find anybody else. Yeah, it's hard. It's no fun to play those guys.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us, what's a normal day like for you off season and then on season? Like you come in and then what happens to you?
Well, I'm kind of a nut job, but so there's 2 different years for me. June to December is kind of one calendar thing, and then December to end of May is another one. But like during the season, so pretty much starting August 1st.
It's coming up.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be 6 to about 9 p.m. every day. I'm here doing stuff. Sometimes it gets a little crazy. Like the longer we go in the season, if it's a state championship week, like last year, it got out of hand. I was getting here at 2 a.m, and that's just.
What are you doing at 2 a.m?
Nothing. Like if you want to be honest, like you're part of a football coach is you really like wring your hands until the last minute. Like I can sit here and tell you this right now, but once you get in the moment, you're not going to make a decision until you absolutely have to. So you just keep looking at film, and then, next thing you know, like you're not going to pull the trigger on a play until you're out of time. And so you kind of just wring your hands the whole time until you're forced to make a decision. And that's what makes it so difficult is you're constantly trying to get more time or you're trying to figure something out, one more tendency, one more signal, whatever it is you're trying to figure out. And it just becomes a mental game you play with yourself. And the truth of the matter is, you probably would have the same results if you didn't do that. But like I told you, I'm a nut job, so
sure.
That you kind of start to get to that point late, especially later on in the season when the stakes are really high. You want to try to get every advantage you possibly can, and so more time to watch film equals, in your mind, more advantage. So,
how much knowledge are you gathering on the other teams? Because your schedule right now for this year, right?
Right now, not a whole lot because people change from year to year. That's the great thing about high school football. What you had last year isn't going to be what you have this year. So I haven't seen a whole bunch of what everyone's doing, players. You can kind of guess, but you don't know how a kid is going to progress. Sophomore, he could go through puberty, whatever it is, right? And those guys totally change. And then also, people change out coaches, so a lot of times there'll be a different coach. They run a different scheme, so it's not the same thing you saw last year. Whereas, the NFL, you can pretty much figure out what a guy's going to do. You got a track record of where they've been.
Right.
They have similar personnel, that kind of stuff. So you're not – this time of year, you're more or less developing your team than you are really worried about what the opponent's doing. Once we start, kind of mid to late August, you start to focus in on who you're playing because you'll get some scrimmage film of them, and then you start looking at that and start figuring out kind of what who they are and start preparing for them. But right now, we're more focused on ourselves, getting ourselves better, and preparing our offense and our defense.
So your season's just about to start. What are you preparing for right now? Like, how are you?
So we're in summer off season. So our kids come from 7 to 10 every day, Monday through Thursday.
You still have 2-a-days?
No. They'll throw you into the jail now for doing 2-a-days. But the difference now is, 2-a-days were we didn't do anything all summer.
Right.
So you show up in August, you're not in shape.
Yep.
They got to get you in shape quickly to play football games. Now these kids have been here all summer. So hopefully they're in shape. They've been working out with us all summer. They should be in
Are
shape.
you allowed to train them in the summertime?
15 hours a week we have, so you can train them, and it basically turns into an hour of speed and agility, an hour of weights, and then an hour of on the field, like OTA type stuff.
Okay.
So you could do 11 on 11, 7 on 7, that type of stuff.
Okay. All right. So what are you looking for right now? Do you know your kids already?
Yeah, you know your kids.
Any surprises? Or?
No, I mean you're trying to see who's going to step up, who's going to fit in what spot. It's like putting a big puzzle together. So you're trying to figure out. A lot of the pieces are obvious, you know where they're going to go, and then a lot of the pieces you're looking, tinkering, trying to flip them around and put them in the right spot. And to me, that's what makes the best coaches, the guys that can figure out how to take what they have and make something beautiful, puzzle out of it that other people may not see.
Okay.
I mean, the obvious pieces, you know where they go, but then it's like I got to fit this in here, make this work, and then you're dealing with all that, and you're also dealing with the whims of 15 to 18-year-old kids. So somebody may quit, somebody may move, somebody gets hurt. Like, you're dealing with all that stuff too. So it kind of makes it difficult.
How often does that happen? Is it a daily basis or weekly? Or?
Not frequently, but also not like every year. Like when I just look at the roster, let's say there's 70 kids on the roster in May. You can count on 5 of those kids not being on the roster when we come back in August. You just kind of know. You don't know which, but it's kind of statistically over the years, you just kind of get a feel for I'm going to lose 5 kids or whatever it is.
Right. So you're preparing your team right now.
Yeah.
How do you get ready for that first game? When is the first game, by the way?
August 25th.
Okay.
In Aledo, Texas.
Oh, my gosh.
So, yeah, they're going to be out for revenge.
Right.
We beat them last year, which was a huge upset, probably one of the biggest upsets in the history of high school football.
Right. That's unprecedented for a private school of your size to beat a public school of that size in Texas.
Everybody laughed at us for scheduling them. We actually played them out here in a small little stadium. We had to bring in
what was the score, by the way?
it was 24-17.
Okay.
But at one point we had them down 24-3. So it was, it was
hanging
actually
on.
ended up being a close game.
You're hanging on at the end.
Yeah, you're hanging on at that point.
Okay.
Yeah. As a coach, you're sitting there, and people always ask me this, like, you got Aledo down 24-3. You're just trying to drive the boat into the dock. You're not trying to screw it up, But anyway, we played them out here. We had to bring in stands, portable stands. It was a really neat atmosphere.
They brought a lot of fans, too, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, they travel a ton of people. It's like Friday Night Lights, true Friday Night Lights. Everybody in the town comes out to watch the football team.
And for people who are watching this video, Aledo is a perennial powerhouse.
Yeah, they've won probably 8 state championships in the last 10 years, something like that. I mean, they've won a ton.
Right.
And when we scheduled them, everybody was like, "What the heck are you guys crazy?"
Why'd you schedule them?
I don't. There's a lot of reasons.
Or how does that happen? Actually,
so you make your own schedule. So you go out, you schedule your own games, and you find your own dance partner. But we had won 3 state championships in a row, and so in Texas, the private and public schools don't play against each other.
Right.
So we had a pretty good team, and our kids. The one thing that never really set right with us and everybody else is you could always hear the chirping of, but they're just winning in private school, or who do they play, or whatever. So it was kind of a culmination of several things. It's hard to find games when you've won 3 state championships in a row because just like you asked me about playing those wing T teams, nobody wants to play somebody who's just won their 3rd straight state championship. So it's a hard time finding people to schedule.
Especially other private schools.
Oh, yeah. They're not going to play us unless they have to. So you end up in this boat with these other schools like Aledo, Duncanville, South Oak Cliff, China Spring, where they have the same problem. They can't find anybody to play. So that was one reason. And the other reason, like I just said, was, we got kind of tired of hearing everybody discredit or kind of minimize our accomplishments. So we said, you know what, screw it. We'll take on whoever wants to play. And, if that's Aledo, so be it. And that's how it came about.
So you didn't take on the state champion in 3A or 4A.
No.
You picked the biggest,
the bully,
baddest school around the DFW area.
3 or 4 of them, but yes, absolutely,
How did that phone call go? Like, were they like, who are you guys?
No, they. I don't know if they knew who we were, but Coach Buchanan, who's been their longtime coach, he just retired, who's a famous Texas high school football coach. He's great. He's one of my favorite people. We've become really good friends. It's nothing like that. It's just like, hey, we're in the same boat. We'll play you. Okay, thanks, great. We'll play. And that was kind of how it went. It wasn't one of those like, movie like, I hate you, you hate me. It wasn't anything like that. It was just, we just agreed to play. And then I hung up the phone. I was like, what have I just done?
Did you call them first?
I can't remember how it came about originally. I know I called him back. I can't remember who initially started the whole we'll play or not play. I want to say they reached out to our AD, but I'm not positive on that. But I can remember thinking, what have I just done, by doing this? But it is what it is.
No one else is going to want to play you now.
No, that's a big problem. We've got the same schedule. It's 2 years.
Right.
So you agree for 2 years. That's what I was saying. They're going to be out for a ton of revenge here when we play in Aledo on August 25th, to answer your original question of when's the first game. But, after this year, the schedule resets. So you're going to have to find everybody else to play again. I don't know what's going to happen at that point.
Because how many in-conference games do you have?
It'll change. So there's a realignment every 2 years, and that's where they set the district. So we don't know what our district will be until October.
Okay. But you know the number of teams, though?
Not always, because teams go up, teams go down. So some years there's been a 9-team district. Like last year, there's a 5-team district. You prefer a 9-team district because that means your games are set, and you don't have to go do what I'm talking about and find 5 people to play. You only have to find 1. But you won't know that until October. But that's how that works.
But typically, it could be where you have 2 or 3 non-conference games. And then that's the difficult part, finding
those games is a big pain in the butt.
Oof. Any ideas so far?
No, I mean,
you want to reveal something on this show?
No, if there's anybody out there, holler at us. But no.
Will you travel anywhere in the state, go out of state?
Yeah, we travel. I mean, I don't want to fly around and can you imagine? They'll probably watch this, so I'm not going to be careful. Can you imagine babysitting a bunch of 15 to 18-year-old kids flying to, like, Philadelphia? I don't want to be responsible for them.
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
In a hotel, that's going to be a nightmare. So
but Oklahoma's not out of the...
No, Oklahoma's easy. Like, if it's a bus trip away and you can get there and back in the same day, count me in. But if you got to go to, like I said, Philadelphia or California, that gets to be, A, expensive, and B, now you're managing 15 to 18-year-old kids in a hotel overnight, and that's a whole nother deal.
But since it's still a year away, somebody's working on this, right?
Our athletic director, they'll reach out to people, and then, end of the day, usually I have to do it too and try to find people. That's where, relationships help, but also, a lot of that'll depend on what the league does with our district. Hopefully they'll put more teams in our district, so it's less.
So explain the highest level of TAPS. Like, how many teams are there right now? Because it's all over Texas, right?
Yeah,
there's like
it's all over
4
Texas.
divisions or something? Or
there's like 16 in TAP 6A right now. It used to be a lot bigger. I don't know the exact number, to be honest with you, because there's multiple districts, but it's dropped. And then
enrollment changes, right?
Yeah, enrollment changes. So they'll set a number, right? So let's just say at Parish there's 430 kids in the high school. We're the smallest 6A school by far.
Okay.
And so they may set the number at, say, 400. So anybody who has above 400 kids in their high school is 6A.
Right.
Anybody between 250 and 400 is 5A. Anybody, 100 to 250 is 4A, and so on and so on. So they'll set that number, and that determines how many teams are in that district. Hopefully they set it to where we get more teams back up in the district, because it's kind of dropped down, which isn't great. You would like to have more teams because it prevents what you're talking about, having to go find the schedule.
Right. And just for perspective, anybody's watching, 6A in TAPS for 400 kids, 6A in public schools like 2,000, 3,000 kids. So
that's what's remarkable about like what's happened at Parish over the last year is like we have no business playing with Aledo. Right. Like they probably have
I'm shocked.
3,000 kids. South Oak Cliff probably has 3,000 kids in the high school, whereas we have 430. So that's the difference in, say, TAP 6A and UIL 6A or UIL 5A or whatever you want to call it. And that's why kind of there's a if you ask people, some people will say, oh, private school, they kind of discredit it, which is going back to what you asked me before. That's why we kind of set out to do what we did and try to prove, hey, we play just as good a football as anybody.
Right. And it's not really 400 kids. You're drawing from 200 boys.
Right.
So it's even smaller.
If you're 50-50.
Right.
You got to also, you may be 60-40 heavy girl or whatever. So if you assume you're 50-50, but you're drawing 200 boys versus, a school with 2,000.
Yeah. How many kids are on your team currently? 70,
give or take. I mean, it's not huge. That's total 9 through 12 in the whole program.
Oh, wow. So, but not some of them are freshman team, JV
No,
team.
they're all together.
Okay.
We don't have enough to make freshman, JV, varsity. So they're all together. Some kids will play JV on Thursday nights, but they're all on the technically.
But they'll
on the
still suit up Friday.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Are you actually throwing them in 2 days in a row?
I mean, you do. Yeah, sometimes you have to.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And they're all practicing together.
All practice together.
Wow. All right. So you can go 3 deep this way. That's
Yeah.
All right.
Uh-huh.
Interesting. So this is the beginning of the season. In the middle of the season, what's every day like? What's your progression?
Like Groundhog Day. Like you kind of get into this rhythm where it's Monday, you know what you do on Monday, Tuesday, you know what you don't do on Tuesday, Wednesday, you do Wednesday, Thursday is the walkthrough, so that's the easier day, and then Friday is game day. But you kind of get into this deal where, all right, you know, Friday you play the game, Saturday, you know, you watch the film. I'll watch the film of last week's game, grade the film, turn the stats in, you know, get the film of next week's opponent ready, kind of make all the cut-ups and the breakdowns, which, you know, cut-up is nothing more than like first down. You know,
No analyst for that?
What's that?
No analyst for that?
No, I got no help for that. No. You know, and blitz, what they blitz or whatever. You make all that. And then Sunday I'll come in here from about, say, 10 o'clock to 6 p.m. and you're watching film. You know, that's nothing else, just watching film, jotting down. I keep a little book and you kind of write down ideas. And then Monday I'll get here early in the morning, about 5:30, watch some more film. About 9 o'clock I'll go home for a little bit, maybe take a nap, whatever, till about lunch. Come back at lunch, and then you got to start. That's the bad time because you got to start making decisions. Practice is at 4:30.
Yep.
So I got to start, you know, scripting out practice and what plays we're actually going to run on offense this week, and that's where you start wringing your hands because now you can no longer kick the can down the road and watch more film. You got to start making some definitive decisions.
So Monday's a hard practice. Then.
Monday is a hard practice. Right. Tuesday is a hard practice. So Monday you kind of put some stuff in. You look at it. Did I like that? Did I not like that? Tuesday, same thing. Wednesday, you got to be pretty much dialed in. You may try a couple things out there that you're not sure about, but most of the stuff you rep or you practice on Wednesday, you're pretty sure you're going to run it in the game. And then Thursday is the walkthrough. You know, it's quick, 4 to 5 o'clock, and Friday's the game. So
no pads on Thursday then.
No.
Okay. So by Wednesday, you already know your game plan based upon all your film study of the opponent coming up. Right.
Yeah. And so, you know, you get here Tuesday morning after Monday's practice, and the first thing I'll do is, you know, you watch more film, but you're also kind of looking at what did I like, what did I not like, what looked good, you know, because it's all theory until you get out there and look at it and, you know, and see the kids practice it. Then you realize, oh, crap, that didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, or didn't look how I wanted it to look. So you'll throw that out, or you may say like, that was perfect. You know, I love that. We're going to rep it some more.
How much adjustment happens week to week depending on the opponent?
A ton.
Okay, so it's not like you're going, this is the way we play.
No.
They got to deal with it.
Some people do that. We don't.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of an interesting question because I don't know the right way. Some people will tell you, hey, we're going to get really good at our plays and we're going to run them no matter what, and you got to stop them.
Right.
That may be the right way to do it. I have no idea. We don't. Like, you know, because one week you could play a team that plays a lot of zone coverage. I'm an offensive coach, so I'm talking from an offensive perspective.
You call your own plays?
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
So, and then the next week you play a team that plays all man coverage. Well, there's concepts that are much better to run against man coverage than zone. So we're going to dial those up much more than we're going to do our zone beaters from the week before. So we change pretty much week to week. But, you know, some people, to your point, they'd sit here and tell you, we run the same thing every week. We're really good at it, and you're going to have to stop it.
Right. But you like to adjust.
Yeah, we try to, you know, adjust to our opponent and get in the best play possible for what we think they're going to do.
All right. And then what's game day like? Tell me.
Oh, man. Game day's awful. So, you know,
awful good or awful bad?
Both. I mean, at first, the games are at 7 p.m., so.
Right. So when do you get into school?
I'll get to school probably 6:30, and you know, pace the hallways, and then by about 8:30, I'm out of here. I'm Catholic, so you know, ritualism and kind of the whole like all that kind of stuff has always been a part of my. It's not what do they call it? Not superstition, but kind of the whole ritualistic. And then at Notre Dame, you know, you'd always go to church on game days, so that's always been a big part of it. So I will leave here at 8:30 and go to the church by my house, a Catholic church, Christ the King, which is a really cool. It's kind of got an old school feel to it. You know, it's kind of an ornate, old, traditional Catholic church. it's dark in there. They have the candles in there going, and so I just go sit in there for a little while. Then I'll go home. Then I'll come back here. Then go back home. It's just a whole lot of anxiety managing until school's out, and you kind of get into the pregame routine, and then that becomes even worse because the kids eat, and you got to have the meeting, and then you got to wait, and then they got to go through pregame, then you got to go through the whole national anthem, and that whole process seems like it takes forever before they kick the ball off.
Are they eating on campus?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they stay here. You get them food, but it seems like the longest thing you ever have to go through until you actually kick the ball off.
Making any adjustments, talking to players at this time? Or
At
you're
that
already,
point,
you're already
no.
set,
Like,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
and my personality, I'm not a big talker on game. Like, everything's done at that point. I'm not going to go, hey, Billy, how you feeling? I can't do all that.
Well, I was going to ask you, what are your speeches like before the game? Or...
Those, you get pretty, it depends. Like, depends how you feel, what you think the team needs or doesn't need, and then you go from there. But those get pretty, once you get to that point, then you're kind of in it. Then you feel, it's getting to that point where it's hard on me. But once you get there where you're talking to them in the locker room, you can get excited for that, and those are pretty fun. And
are you more Nick Saban or more Dungy?
But I don't know which one's which, but I like to try to give a good message and try to get them to think about whatever it is I want them to think about for that week and make it enthusiastic and not just kind of you hear some guys are like, oh, do your job,
Right.
But I will also tell you, I think a lot of that's overrated. After about 2 plays, like, they're either going to know what they're doing and they're coached to know what they're doing, and they're going to execute, or they're not. And nothing you're going to say in that locker room 10 minutes before the game is really going to change a whole lot of that. That passion will last about 2 plays, and then you better have a pretty good game plan. You better have a pretty good scheme, or you're not going to get a whole lot farther.
So what did you do to prepare for Alito then, based upon what your kids can do? Because they have better athletes, right?
Yeah,
could
they
you
have
say
better
that?
athletes. They have a better program. They have more kids. They have
What did
better
you do to
history.
negate all that then?
I don't know. We like to think we just outwork people, and you try to, there's really no.
Were you throwing in a lot of misdirection?
No,
trick plays. Was it just straight up your game?
Yeah, you just try to coach your kids the best you can. You try to also look at what they do and find ways to attack. We got a couple of cheap touchdowns by attacking what they do. I don't know when you're going to air this, but we got to play them again, so I'm not going to go too much into it. They may see it, but
so last year's game, when did you know this was going to be a game and not a typical Alito blowout of a non-conference game?
when we walked out there the pregame, Coach Buchanan, he didn't mean anything by it, but he asked me, they were playing Denton Geyer the next week.
Which is another great
Right. team. And he asked me, he's like, did you see that Geyer game last night? I said, no, sir, I did not. Oh, man, they're good. They're really good, and I was like, I bet they are, and I just, at that point, I kind of thought to myself, they may not be taking us so seriously. And then the other thing he said to me was, he said, our parents are mad. I said, oh, why is that? And he said, because they're mad. Like I told you, we had to bring in stands. We're playing a little old church school. There are not enough seats. And so I walked in there and I told our kids, they think they're playing a little old church school. You could just see it in our kids' eyes that they were going to punch them in the mouth, and they weren't going to be, they weren't just going to lay down for them. And that was kind of the moment I kind of knew, okay, they may not really know what they've gotten themselves into just yet, and then we came out and kind of took it to them early. Then they fought back and they made it it was a really tight game. We stopped them on 4th down on the 10-yard line going in to win the game. We should have, if you ask me, we should have put them away, but a lot of that was coaching and player mistakes and what have you. But, at that point in the pregame, I had a pretty good feeling that our kids we're going to respond well to that, number one, and then we're prepared, and that, they may have not necessarily taken us as seriously as they should have because of who they were playing next week.
So typically when you see a small school, a private school play a big-time public school in Texas, when the initial teams clash on the field, you can see the talent difference, right? There's typically the public school has more speed, they're stronger, bigger. When you guys went onto the field, how did you negate that?
I don't know that we did. Like, when I saw him jog out, I was like, oh, man, what do we got ourselves into here? But also, I kept reminding myself, like, if you don't, and I told our kids this, like, don't look at the logo on there. They're no different than Fort Worth Nolan or anybody else, and they really aren't. They're just kids just like everybody else. A lot of that is mystique, and, they win off the notoriety. And if you can kind of block that out of your mind and just go play football, you'll be fine. But we also had some really good football players too, and that was the thing. Our kids, we didn't have as many of them. Obviously, they got a lot more players on their roster than we do, but you can only put 11 of them out there
Right.
at one time, and that's the good thing. We didn't have to play all 400 of them at once. We only had to play 11 on offense, 11 on defense, and 11 on special teams. And so that was kind of what we tried to stick to, and we tried to just take it to them and do what we could to take advantage of whatever. Football is all about matchups. What matchup do I have that I can take advantage of versus what he has? And that was also what we're trying to do.
Did you, so just as perspective, and I'm not trying to brag or anything because it's just really bad, but when I played high school football, I went to a school called Jesuit. It was a private school. This is back in the 80s, and the big schools were Dallas Carter, Kimball, Odessa Permian.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember them playing Odessa Permian.
So Jesuit played Odessa Permian. Jesuit played Kimball. We played Dennis in high school, which was really good back in the day. We played Louisville, the Farmers, they were very good back in the day. Played Plano and Plano East my senior year. So what would typically happen is we could match up with them up until halftime. So scores were like 0-0, 7-0. And then by the end of the third quarter, we're blown out. We're dead. We're tired. They're just subbing in guys. They all seem to be the same guy. And their speed and physicality eventually get to us.
Just wears you down, yeah.
How'd you guys deal with that?
That was a huge concern for us going into the game was exactly what you're talking about. A lot of it's the summer workout program. We got a really good strength and conditioning coach, and so, you're preparing all summer to play in a game like that. And then, you're trying your best to, like most of our kids got IV fluids the night before the game. You're doing everything you can to make sure that type of stuff you can't prevent it, but that you're taking every step you can to be prepared for it, because, that was our biggest concern. Okay, is, like you said, maybe we can hang in there, but then all of a sudden they just wear us down because they just overwhelm us with their, depth and numbers. And, but it just, luckily, I don't know, it just didn't happen.
Right. So now the season starts when you make the playoffs. How's that different than the regular season?
Well, now the intensity gets, the mindset in the regular season, you never want to lose a game.
Right.
But if it happens, it's not the end of the world because you're going to fix it next week. And we've won 4 straight state championships in a row. We've never had a season where we've gone undefeated. So we've always had one loss in there.
Are they unexpected?
They're unexpected. Or and then you never want to lose. It's miserable to lose, but you wake up on Saturday and you realize we can fix this. You turn it into a positive. It's going to get the attention of our kids. We're going to fix what we did wrong and come back stronger. Once you get to the playoffs, there is no fixing it. It's final. And luckily I don't even remember the feeling because it's been 4 years since we had walked off the field in a playoff game having lost. But that's the worst, thing. It's the absolute catastrophic result is you don't want that to happen. And as a coach, it's because you care so much for the kids. You don't want to disappoint the kids, right? I mean, I'm going to coach again, knock on wood, they may fire me or whatever, but I will coach again next season. For that senior, that's it. You don't want to disappoint him in his high school football season where it may be his last game or he walks off the field losing or whoever. So that's where it really gets ramped up to me is the stakes get so much higher because there is no next week. There is no let's get better or come back stronger or whatever. It's turn in your stuff and go on to whatever you're going to do next.
Is the preparation any different?
Oh, yeah.
So what are you doing different?
That's like I was alluding to earlier, like you start finding yourself, coming up here at 2 a.m. watching film now instead of 6 o'clock in the morning. And, practices will last longer, but, you're just scrambling for any sort of advantage that you can possibly get.
Can you do much with the team at that point? Because they've been under your program for that all year long. They're in a rhythm. Yeah. Is there much adjustment at that point? Or?
Yeah, I mean, every week you're playing different people, so you got to prepare for different stuff. So, yeah, there's some of what you're talking about is like, hey, it is what it is. They've run the system for a long time now, which is the good part because they should have it down.
Right.
But then there's also stuff that, teams are different each week, so you got to prepare for those differences each week, and you can't just use the same game plan from last week to this week, also because they just saw it on film.
Right.
So, if I just run the same thing every week, it's pretty easy for that guy over there to be like, hey, on every 3rd and 10, he's calling this play. We just need to stop it, you know.
Right.
And so you gotta guard against that. But that's always the age-old question in the playoffs. People ask, like, you know, do you do what you do and just try to do it better, or do you change things and try to surprise them? And I don't know. I mean, the answer, I think, is in the middle.
Do you think the play calling has gotten different?
Yeah.
Is it more sophisticated
Yeah,
nowadays?
way more sophisticated.
What's the biggest difference than when you played?
Um,
And this is on a high school level. I can
Yeah,
only
I
imagine
mean,
what they're doing in college and the pros.
my high
I mean.
school play calls were so simple and so, like, binary. Whereas, like I was saying earlier, like now it's like everything has so much optionality to it where, you know, he can get up to the line of scrimmage, he can change the play, he can throw, he can run it. You know, there's so much more going on than there was when I was playing high school football. You know, just the advent, like I said, of the RPO changes the game because it's a run or a pass on basically every play. I'm not calling runs or passes hardly ever. It's mainly him deciding, the quarterback deciding what he's going to do based on what he sees out there on each play.
Are the kids just more sophisticated nowadays?
Smarter, it seems like. I don't know. I mean, I always think about that because I'm like, man, I didn't know any of this when I was in high school, and I look at them and, you know, they're learning all kind of crazy stuff. And, you know, when I was in high school, it was throw the ball to Billy, you know, deep. And if he's
Right.
not open, run or whatever.
Right.
You know, there wasn't a whole lot of options behind whatever the coach called.
Right. So are they just coming up through the younger leagues that way?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
the 7-on-7, you know, I think the younger leagues have gotten more competitive. I think there's more of a, you know, kids are focusing more on sports early on. So, like, so a lot of kids will decide I want to be a quarterback in 3rd grade, and their dad will
Yep.
get them a quarterback trainer, and they focus on playing quarterback from, you know, the day they're 9 years old until the day they start high school football at 15 or 16 years old, and they've worked on it every day. Whereas when I was a kid, it was like, all right, you threw the football during football season, you played basketball during basketball season,
Right.
you played baseball, and then in the summer you did whatever, you swam, whatever, and then you didn't start football again until August, you know, and you didn't think about football again until August. So,
So are the kids physically better, or are they just more prepared
More
nowadays? Okay.
yeah,
So the athleticism is not any
I
different.
don't think so. I
But
mean,
they're just more focused on the game, right?
Yep.
Okay. So they can do more when you guys are actually playing
way
them.
better coached when you get them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and way more knowledgeable about the game. Usually, a lot of the kids are because they've been doing it, you know, and working on it basically 365, 24/7. You know,
Right, right. So when the season's over, what's your day like? What are you doing?
Then it kind of slows down. So I'm just the football coach, so I don't have any other responsibility.
Yeah, you
but
don't
also-
teach or anything.
No,
like that. Okay.
that's a good thing about Texas. Most guys don't teach; they don't have to do anything else. They're just the football coach. So, big part of my job at that point is dealing with the college recruiting. So I kind
how's
of
that
shift
like?
over and try to help. Most of these kids want to go play in college.
Mm-hmm.
So my job at that point is to basically turns into a sales job. So you're calling on colleges, trying to get them to look at your kids, trying to get them to offer your kids a scholarship. You know, you start really focusing on that the day the season ends, because now I got a bunch of kids that want to go play college football.
Right.
So then that becomes my job till signing day in February. Take a little break. Then we start our off-season program, which starts at 6 in the morning. So the next year's team will start lifting for the following year, you know, and they'll start building that team. And then also you're trying to get the juniors who are going to be seniors, you start working on their recruitment for colleges in that spring, because that's when a lot of that will start. And then, like I said, it'll pick back up after their senior year, but you start working on their recruiting and trying to get them recruited, and that takes up the majority of your time and of your day, you know, dealing with all that stuff.
Okay. And then if somebody is watching this video and they said, I want to be a high school football coach or a football coach in
No,
general.
kidding.
Any tips or advice? What are you looking for when you hire coaches? What kind of personality? What should people do if they want to get into this?
I mean, you should go find a program that's a good program. Do whatever it takes to get in the door. You're not going to get rich, unfortunately, but the money's getting better and better. But, you know, the main thing is
What do you look for?
dedication, loyalty.
Okay.
Like, it's really hard in our world today to find people, and I tell the kids this all the time, like, that don't make excuses and that are dependable. Like, I think everyone's best quality is you say you're going to do something, be there, do that. Like, a lot of people now make excuses. You know, I got to go to this birthday party. I got to miss practice. I have a dentist appointment. You hear all that stuff, and I always tell them, while people may say okay or okay, fine, like they're really laughing at you because you're the person that's not dependable. And like you become this person that everyone is like, oh, here he goes again. What excuse does he have? Same thing I would tell a young coach or anybody else. Like the best thing you can do is to never miss, be early, stay late, find ways to add value. Don't have to be told what to do, be proactive in doing stuff. And those are the guys that have success, that are dependable. And that's really, to me, in hiring, the number one thing I try to find out is this guy a grinder? Is he willing to do whatever it takes? Or am I going to get my car broke down? I got a flat tire. I got to take my daughter to the doctor. Excuse after excuse. Everybody has those things come up. To me, the successful people deal with it. They hold their commitment, and they handle all that stuff on their own time.
Right. How much playing experience matters to you?
Doesn't.
Okay. How much knowledge of actual tactics and strategy?
I'd go back to this. Like my playing experience, my knowledge from my playing experience was very limited. I had a little bit of it, but like I couldn't have gone and coached like this just off my playing experience. The knowledge I got was from working from other good coaches. So, I mean, I don't think you need to play to go do that. A lot of people want to tell you you do because that creates kind of a barrier to entry, for a lot of people. But if you want to coach, go learn from somebody that's you think is really good at it, and you can be just as good, if not better than people that played. Mike Leach never played it down in football. Lou Holtz never played it down in football. So, I mean, I don't think it's a prerequisite.
Do a lot of guys get into this gig and not get paid for a while in the beginning?
People get paid. You don't get paid a lot in the beginning, pretty much anywhere you go. That's getting better, but that's one of the bad parts about football in general, in my opinion, is there's this expectation of you're going to work your butt off. It's kind of this valor or this code of honor of like, and you shouldn't get paid for it. I don't think that's right. I don't assign my guys stuff to do that I wouldn't do myself, or if I ask somebody to go do something that's kind of out of the scope of their responsibility, I'm going to pay them, whether it's out of my pocket or if the school will pay them, to go do it. I disagree with that, of taking advantage of people like that.
Right. Change the topic. Who came up with the idea with the blue field out there?
Oh, I wish I could take credit for that, but that was our old coach and our old head of school.
Okay.
I actually thought it was dumb, to be honest. So, when they brought the idea up, but it's turned into a genius marketing ploy. People recognize the blue field. Immediately they know exactly, they either think they're in Boise or at Parish Episcopal, and I can't tell you how many people comment on it or on the plane, take a picture of it and send it to me, or just want to see it. So it's really been a brilliant move by them.
Right. And Coach, tell us about your school, your team. Just give us a little rundown about how you spend your day. I mean, where you spend your day all day.
Here, back in this office. But, the school has been around since 2003. It kind of, the high school, there was a lower school since 1972. It's really kind of an interesting experiment because the school never set out to have a dominant football program. It just kind of occurred over happenstance over the last several years, and we kind of built this thing into this. It's really a ritzy $30,000 a year private school where you get an incredible education. We just kind of had a couple of marquee players come through, and it's kind of turned into this on the football side. But the good thing about this place is it's a certain type of kid that comes here that you're dealing with that is academically focused, that's usually a good kid, and that's also athletically focused. So you're kind of getting the best of all those things. And, you don't have to coach a lot of I haven't had hardly any that I can think of bad kids come through here or problem kids come through here. So it makes the job enjoyable from that standpoint of it. It is challenging because we're the smallest school even in our division. So, it's that the challenging part of that is there's years where you're, man, I hope we have a team, how many kids are we going to have out? And you're kind of panicked about that stuff. But that's always worked itself out, and we've been able to, do some pretty unique things along the way. We played on ESPN.
Really?
Yeah, we played Deion Sanders' school.
Are you serious?
2019, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we beat him in overtime out here. Let's see, 2019.
Was he coaching that team?
Yeah, he was coaching that team. Yeah, his son was the quarterback.
Yep.
It was a great game. It was on ESPN. We've had it, like I said, we had a reality show. That was a really interesting experience.
So tell reality with what channel or what?
Overtime. You know what Overtime Sports is? I didn't really either, but apparently it's pretty. The kids all it's kind of like Barstool for the kids or whatever. And so We had a reality show for a season that was really interesting to be a part of that. You got to see how that all
Are the
worked.
cameras following you and all that
Yeah,
stuff?
I mean,
Yep.
the only thing I wish is like the school had editing rights, so you didn't get to see really everything. I understand why they want you to see everything, but I think it was really interesting to see how that works. The amazing thing about being on a reality show is you watch The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, and you're like, how are these people that stupid to not realize they have a camera on you?
Right.
You forget because they'll show up here. When they did it, they would show up here at like 10 in the morning, and they would mic me up, and the camera guy would be here. So by 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock when practice come, you've gotten comfortable. You've forgotten that you're wearing the microphone, and you're saying whatever you want to say, and then you're like, oh crap, I just said that, and it's on the microphone, and so that's how they get people to, because I've always wondered that, but that's how they get people to say dumb things and to act stupid is because they get you comfortable. They kind of lull you to sleep and get you comfortable with it. And the next thing you know, you're out there acting a fool. But it was a really interesting experience. The guys were great. We ended up winning the state championship that year. So to document all those memories, and all those times throughout the year with that show was really special with that group of kids, and it was the first state championship. So that made it really fun.
What was your best moment and worst moment as a coach?
Last year beating Aledo was close, probably one of the best.
How many non-conference games did you play last year?
5.
5 non-conference?
Yeah.
Were they all public schools?
Yeah, no. We played Bel Air Episcopal, and Houston was
Okay.
the only one that wasn't.
Were the other public schools big schools like Aledo? Or?
Yeah, we played Aledo. We played South Oak Cliff, who won their state championship. We played China Spring, who won the 4A state championship. Austin LBJ, who was in the state final the year before and then lost to Port Neches Grove, who went to the state championship.
So you beat all the public schools?
All the public schools except South Oak Cliff. South Oak
Okay.
Cliff beat us on the last play.
All right.
And then the worst moment, that's it. The worst moment for me happens every year. It doesn't matter whether you win or not. It's when that last game is played, and even if you've won the state championship, you realize you're never going to get to coach that group of kids, this team, those seniors again, and it's tough. It's like a death. Like you kind of go through the stages of grief. It's really hard, and you're kind of struggling with yourself because you should be happy. You just won the state championship, but all you can think about is I'm never going to get to coach that kid again, and it makes it really difficult. It's almost, dealing with a death of somebody every single year, and you dread that moment. You want it. That's why when you go back to your playoff question, you want to keep winning because you just want one more week to not have to deal with that emotion of the finality of the season is over. And even if you win the last game, that's a tough emotional thing to go through because you really start to care about the kids. You bond to them. You're together so much more than you are with your family or anybody else. And then one day it's just over. And that's it. There's no more. Practice is done. Turn in your stuff, and you don't see them again. You see them around school, but it's not the same. They're not out there every day, spending time with you. You see them every day. And then you go from that to nothing. And the same with the coaches. You're around this group of great guys for so long, you become like brothers. Come December, you see them rarely, every so often, but not like spending the time with them that you normally do. And you don't know if like that same staff will be back together. You don't know if that same, obviously the same group of kids won't be together anymore because the seniors are going to leave, but you realize it's never going to be the same.
Yep. And then finally, what are your thoughts on the upcoming season?
Oh, man. I'm a pessimistic person by nature, so people call me paranoid. I'm a plan for the worst type person, so I'll never sit here and tell you we're going to win or whatever, just because it's not how I work and it's not how I operate. So I would tell you we're going to be lucky to win. I just hope we can win one game and build from there. So I don't know. Every year is a different year. You don't know what everybody else has. Hopefully we can go out and win 5 in a row. There's only been 2 teams in the history of high school football at any level to win 5 championships in a row. So that's something we'd really like to accomplish.
All right, Coach. Well,
there you go.
I think we'll end it there.
All
Thank
right.
you so much. This was awesome.
Yeah, that was great, and I really enjoyed it.
Yep. All right. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.